How's it going, folks? Tactard Ted here to talk to you about the neo-socialist. Yeah, the neo-socialist. Been seeing a lot lately, people going on about various things. And I've came to the conclusion that, number one, a lot of American people are just plain outright stupid and ignorant, unaware. This woke nonsense is they're aware that we got to worry about pronouns and we got to worry about this. They're not aware of where their shit that they use in their daily lives comes from. And today I received a lecture from a woman on buying from China, how that we should not buy anything from China, which is a really good idea, the way it sounds. But most Americans have no idea just how much shit they get from China. And somebody, of course, will come out and they'll quote a bunch of numbers about how, well, we only get X amount of this and we're still a leading manufacturer. So this lady proceeded to lecture me about China. And, let's face it, I have no love for the Chinese communist. I think that communism is a blight on humanity, and socialism is simply for commies who are too afraid to call themselves commies. Let's be honest with all that. Or you're a useful idiot that have no idea what the idea of socialism is. It is communism. Anyhow, she proceeded to lecture me on buying from China and how we should all stop buying from China. And I asked her, I said, ma'am, what's that hanging out of your purse? She goes, oh, that's my iPhone. I said, really? Your iPhone that was made in China was slave labor. Yes, your iPhone. So, ma'am, before you start lecturing me on the fact that I may have a hat or a pair of shoes made in China, maybe you might want to look at that $500 to $800 piece of technology you have hanging out of your purse that was made in the People's Republic of China. You might want to look at that. And don't get me wrong, I think it would be great if we could make an iPhone here. I really do. I think it would be great. The unfortunate reality of it is because of government interference in business, because of government regulation, that same iPhone would end up costing you probably about $5,000. And it's not because of how much the workers make. No, it's because of the government interference, the government regulation, and the tax burden that is laid on a lot of these people. And a lot of this you can say, oh, well, they're fees. No, they're taxes. They really are taxes. They're not fees. They're simply punishing you to allow you to engage in commerce. And to be honest, with all the fees and all the taxes that are levied against business, I'm not really sure why we continue to tax the individual in this country. I always find it amazing because a lot of times we have what we call sin taxes. And I know a lot of times we have taxes that are aimed at reducing a behavior. Alcohol tax. That is to help reduce the consumption of alcohol. Cigarette taxes are aimed at making it punitive to smoke cigarettes. Gasoline taxes, well, those are aimed supposedly at getting you to curb how much you're driving to use public transportation, which for me out in BFE is a joke. There is no public transportation. There is no alternative. And even if there was, my work schedule, which is not traditional, would not be conducive to using public transportation. So we tax your labor, we tax your earnings, we tax your work and your wages. So aren't we in return, aren't we trying to dissuade people from working? We're punishing people for succeeding. We're punishing people for having a work ethic. And then we wonder why people don't want to work, why people don't want to hold jobs, and why people aren't interested in earning money. Oh no, they'd much rather sit back and be leeches, parasites, and live on the tit of the government. That's why they're big government fans, because the government punishes you and I for working. They punish you and I for succeeding. And then they take that money and they give it to the leeches. These people really are the refuse of society. They don't want to work. They don't want to contribute, but they'll be the first to run their mouth anytime there's a situation that comes up. There are certain things about other forms of government, other idealisms that I do find appealing from time to time. One of the things about the Soviet Union, everyone worked. If you were a little grandma and you wanted your pension and you lived in an apartment building, well, you were given a section of that apartment building that you needed to sweep, clean, or whatever. Even it may have been the sidewalk. And there was someone who would come along to check your box and make sure that you've done your job, and then you collect your money. Everybody worked. Nobody was a parasite. Nobody sat at home on their fat ass, watching TV, talking on their free cell phone, and sitting there with their hand out. It just didn't happen. They don't allow parasites. They don't allow people to pull society down. Also, if you look at maybe one of the other sides of the equation, the movie Starship Troopers. In order to gain citizenship, or to guarantee your citizenship, you had to prove yourself a worthy member of that society, or a productive member of that society. In other words, you joined the service to guarantee your say, to guarantee your citizenship. And I hear a lot of people refer to it as an ultra-fascist government in that movie or what have you. But that is something that I really find appealing, is that to have a little bit of say, you should have some skin in the game. This is like people who live on government assistance having a say about government. That would be like me having an endless bank and I get to say how the bank is ran. That's kind of self-satisfying, isn't it? Or self-serving, that you allow the people who produce nothing to have a say in how the government works. And I get it. There's a certain amount of freedom, and I don't mean that we shouldn't have a say as far as your basic freedoms, but as far as your basic entitlements, or the entitlements you think you deserve, no. If you're sitting there with your hand out and you're perfectly capable of working, then you should be engaging in production. You should absolutely. Look, I see some folks out there who don't have a lot of skills. There are people who the best they can do is drive a pickup, towing a trailer, and you'll see them up and down the interstate hauling loads on a pickup truck with a gooseneck trailer or regular trailer. You see a lot of people who are engaged in some sort of commerce. And to be honest, driving a truck pays pretty decent. But, there are certain jobs Americans won't do. Well, don't worry, folks, because we will import a ton of foreign labor to handle that. And I don't think that's right. How many, and I see an awful lot of women truck drivers. Now, how many folks out there that claim they can't do anything, play video games all day? You got pretty good hand and eye coordination. You can drive a truck. You can dig a ditch. But I don't want to do that job. Well, you don't want to do that job. Great. That's fine. I don't want to support you. I don't want my family to have to support you. I find it really ironic that seniors who worked all their lives and paid into Social Security don't get a good return on what they invested, yet people who've never worked continually get raises to their benefits. I just find that rather ironic. I find that rather contradictory. If you want this country to be a great country, number one, you need to have a populace that works. Number two, you don't need to import more people into this country than we have jobs. And before you start importing people, the employment level in this country should be a good bit higher. Now, You may not like that. Well, let me explain to you capitalism. Everything has a value in capitalism. Supply and demand. Okay? That's how capitalism works. When the supply is low and the demand is high, the price goes up. So we're doing the inverse. We're importing labor when there is labor available to artificially keep the price low of what labor is paid. I'm not anti-labor. I'm not an anti-working person. I'm not pro-corporation, although corporations and people who take the risk to start corporations, those people are what generate wealth in this country. The government doesn't generate wealth. The government, by its nature, is parasitic. It survives off of businesses. They survive off of labor. The government doesn't produce anything. The government doesn't have money. You can say, well, it prints money. Yes, it prints money, which devalues the worth of the money. So when we import a ton of people, or we allow people to come into this country illegally, we are keeping wages in this country artificially low. And it doesn't help that we have a lot of folks that won't work, because we have this social safety hammock that allows people not to work. It allows people to leech off the government, and you're not really leeching off the government, you're leeching off your fellow Americans. And I'm not saying for people who have a illness or a real handicap that keeps them from working. I'm talking about the guy who just doesn't want to work. Just doesn't want to work. That's a drain, because now not only are we supporting him, but we're letting in 15 people who cross the border illegally to take jobs, and that money doesn't stay here. That money goes back to wherever they came from. That supports their family living elsewhere. That money goes out of the country. We're losing money on the person that doesn't want to work. And the corporations are benefiting. This is what I love, is people that talk, we need to punish businesses. We need to punish corporations. No, we don't need to punish them. We need to let the capitalists play by the rules of capitalism. And we need to stop the government interference, which is, you don't understand, is actually helping these corporations in some ways, and then hurting them in others. It's hurting them by it's not allowing them to make the profits they should make, but at the same time, they're going to supply them illegal, cheap labor and keep you and I from making the buck that we should. And yes, inversely, what's going to happen is the price of goods are going to go up. Not quite like Joe Biden and Barack Obama deciding that because they don't like certain types of energy, that they are going to impose so much trouble on coal and so much trouble on fossil fuels that the prices are going to rise. This is interference. This is a way to curb your behavior. And what a lot of you folks don't understand, by all this welfare, by all these benefits to people who don't want to work, they're keeping your wages low, and they're making you pay out more benefits. If everybody would get a job in this country, and we would cut back on legal immigration and make illegal immigration actually illegal. And for those of you who don't know, I have family that are immigrants. I am married to someone who was not born in this country and has immigrated and been naturalized. My point is, we can't simply go and call ourselves a capitalist country and enjoy the benefits of capitalism with tons and tons of government interference. And that's what we're allowing to happen. We're allowing the government to interfere daily with what's happening. And that's a no-go. We can't allow that to happen. But yet you guys keep voting for the same people, left, right, whatever, who continue to allow this to happen. And it's a no-go. So that's a little thought about our own economy and where we're at. We'll talk at you folks later.